Today marks 1 year since you abandoned me. Street kid tells millionaire, and Richard Sullivan felt the weight of the world on his shoulders as he flipped through the pages of the morning newspaper, trying to focus on the financial news that might affect his business. The 52-year-old entrepreneur was used to the peaceful routine of Central Park in New York City, where he always came to have his breakfast before heading to the office. Then a small, trembling voice broke the morning silence. Today marks 1 year since you abandoned me. Richard felt the newspaper slip from his hands. Those words hit him like a punch to the gut. Slowly, he raised his eyes and met the gaze of a child about 7 years old, with messy blonde hair and clothes that had once been beige, but were now dirty and patched. The boy's brown eyes shone with a mix of hope and sorrow that made the businessman's heart race. I don't know you, kid," Richard murmured, but his voice came out weaker than he intended. "You don't remember me?" the child asked, taking a step closer to the bench. "I'm little Jack Henry Sullivan." The last name dropped like a bomb. Richard felt the world spin. Sullivan. How did this boy know his last name? And why did he look so familiar, with those delicate features that reminded him of... "My mom always said I had the Sullivan family's eyes," the boy continued, as if reading his thoughts. "She said you were my uncle, her brother, that one day you'd come for me." The memories came like an avalanche. Emily, his younger sister, who had disappeared 8 years ago after a terrible family fight. She had gotten pregnant at 17, and Richard, at the time focused solely on building his business empire, had kicked her out of the house, seeing the pregnancy as a disgrace to the family. Their father had been gone for years, and their mother had been in a mental institution ever since. "Emily," he whispered his sister's name. "Mrs. Emily was my mom," Jack confirmed, and for the first time his voice wavered. She passed away last year. Before she left, she brought me here and said you'd come for me, that I should wait on this bench every day." Richard stood abruptly, making the boy step back. The businessman's mind was in a frenzy. Emily had had this child, his nephew, and here he was, alone, abandoned for a whole year. "Where have you been living all this time?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Here and there," Jack shrugged, with a maturity beyond his years. "There's a bridge nearby where I sleep when it's too cold. Aunt Dorothy sometimes gives me food." "Aunt Dorothy?" "The lady who sells flowers on the corner. She said she knows you, that she always sees you driving by." Richard looked in the direction the boy pointed and saw the flower vendor who had been there for decades. Dorothy waved at him, as if she'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. A chill ran through him as he realized half the neighborhood probably knew about the boy, while he had spent the last year completely unaware of his nephew's suffering. "Why didn't you ask for help? Didn't you go to an orphanage?" "My mom told me not to trust strangers. She said family is family and that you'd come back." Jack fidgeted with a small bundle in his pocket. "She left this for you." With trembling hands, the boy held out a yellowed envelope. Richard took it and immediately recognized Emily's delicate handwriting. His name was written on the front with such tenderness that his eyes burned. "I can't really read yet," Jack admitted, "but I know it's important." Richard opened the envelope and unfolded the letter. The sister's words leaped from the page like daggers to his heart. "My dear brother, if you're reading this, it means I'm already gone, and our Jack is all alone. I know you hate me for what happened, but he isn't to blame for our mistakes. He's a sweet, bright boy who asks about his uncle every day. Forgive my cowardice, but I couldn't bring myself to reach out to you before. The Sullivans' pride has always been our downfall. Jack knows where you usually have coffee. He'll find you. Please don't abandon him like you abandoned me. He's all the good I have left in this world. With love, your sister, who never stopped loving you, Emily." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. The tears Richard had held back for so long finally streamed down his face. Little Jack watched him in silence, as if understanding this was a sacred moment. "She always said you were very busy," the boy said softly. "That one day when you had time, you'd come for me." "Jack, Richard tried to speak, but the words tangled. How could he explain to a child he hadn't even known existed? How could he admit he'd been so petty as to cut all ties with his sister? "Do you want me to leave?" Jack asked, misreading the silence. "I can go. I don't want to be a bother." "No!" Richard shouted, louder than he intended. A few people in Central Park glanced their way. "No, Jack, you're not going anywhere." The boy smiled for the first time, and Richard saw Emily in that smile, the same shy way of grinning, the same dimple on the left side of his face. "So, you'll take me home?" The simple question carried the weight of a mountain. Home. Richard lived alone in a penthouse on the Upper East Side, a cold, impersonal space designed to impress clients, not house a family. He'd never thought about having children, never considered he might be responsible for a child. "It's complicated, Jack. These things take time to sort out." The boy's smile faded slowly. "My mom said adults say it's complicated when they don't want to do something." The painful wisdom of that remark hit Richard like a slap. This boy had learned far too young how to decipher adult excuses. "That's not it, Jack. It's just, I need to handle some legal things. Paperwork, that sort of thing." "I have paperwork," Jack said, pulling a yellowed plastic bag from his pocket. "My mom kept everything here." Richard took the bag and found Jack's birth certificate, some medical records, and a faded photo of Emily holding the baby at Mercy Hospital. The father's name was blank on the document, but under relatives it read, "Paternal uncle Richard Sullivan." "Your mother listed me as your legal guardian?" he asked, stunned. "She said family takes care of family," Jack replied. "That when she was gone, I'd be your son." The word son echoed in Richard's mind. He'd never been a father, never wanted that responsibility. His life was perfectly organized. Work, the gym, occasional social events, business trips. There was no room for a child, let alone a traumatized boy who'd lived on the streets for a year. "Jack, are you hungry?" he asked, buying time to process it all. The boy nodded sheepishly. "When was the last time you had a proper meal?" "Aunt Dorothy gave me bread with bologna last night." Richard's heart clenched. His nephew was going hungry, while he spent more on a single meal than some families had to live on for a whole month. "Let's have breakfast then," he decided, putting the documents in his inner jacket pocket. "Where?" "There's a bakery nearby that's really good." Jack hesitated. "Can I go dressed like this?" "They won't let me in." Richard looked at the boy's dirty clothes and realized there was indeed a problem. The bakery he frequented was an upscale place, visited by New York City's elite. "You know what? Let's buy some clothes first." "You're going to spend money on me?" The innocent question revealed just how much Jack had learned not to expect anything from anyone. "Yes, I am. Your family." They walked to a nearby mall, and Richard noticed how Jack stared at everything in awe, as if he were on another planet. The boy had never been in a place like this. At the children's clothing store, the saleswoman eyed Jack suspiciously. "Can I help you?" she asked, speaking only to Richard. "We'd like some clothes for the boy. Something comfortable." "Is he your—" "My nephew," Richard answered, and for the first time those words felt true. Jack tried on several outfits, and Richard was surprised to see how handsome the boy looked when clean and well-dressed. He was truly a Sullivan, with the family's striking features. "Can I just pick one outfit?" Jack asked, staring at price tags he couldn't comprehend. "You can pick as many as you want." "But it's too expensive." "Jack, I have enough money to buy this whole store. Don't worry about it." The boy fell silent for a moment, processing that information. "Then why didn't you look for me sooner?" The question hit Richard like a punch. How could he explain he hadn't known the boy existed? How could he admit he'd been so cruel to Emily that she'd rather struggle than ask for his help? "I didn't know you existed, Jack. Your mother and I had a fight a long time ago. She never told me about you." "She wanted to," Jack said, surprising Richard. "Sometimes she'd stand by the phone dialing your number, but she always hung up before it rang." "How do you know that?" "I saw her. Once I asked why she didn't talk to Uncle Richard. She said she was afraid you wouldn't forgive her." Richard felt a heavy weight in his chest. Emily had spent all those years wanting to reconnect, but afraid of his reaction. And he, too proud to reach out, had missed 8 years of his sister's life and 7 years of his nephew's. They left the store with several bags. Jack was wearing a new outfit and looked like a completely different child. Richard took him to the mall restroom to wash up properly and was shocked to see how thin the boy was, his ribs visible through his skin, a sign of serious malnutrition. At the bakery, Jack ate as if he hadn't seen food in days. That was probably true. Richard watched his every move, every expression of delight, as he tasted things that were ordinary to Richard, but a luxury to Jack. "Jack, where did you sleep when it rained?" "There's an overpass near here, it's drier underneath." "And when it was cold?" "I'd pile up cardboard. Aunt Dorothy sometimes lent me an old blanket." Each answer was a stab to Richard's heart. His nephew had lived like a beggar while he slept on imported silk sheets. "Jack, do you really want to come to my house?" The boy stopped eating and looked at him seriously. "Do you want me to?" "I'm asking what you want." "I want to have a family," Jack answered simply. "I want someone to worry about me when I don't come home. I want someone to talk to about the things I learn. I want someone to teach me how to be a grown-up." The maturity of those words left Richard speechless. This 7-year-old boy had more emotional wisdom than most adults he knew. "But I don't know how to be a father, Jack. I've never been one. My mom said no one is born knowing, that we learn by doing." Richard smiled for the first time that day. "Your mother was a wise woman." "She was. She knew so many things. She could make delicious food with almost nothing, tell stories that helped me sleep peacefully, and make home remedies when I got sick." "Do you miss her?" "Every day. But she said when we love someone who's gone, they keep living inside our hearts, so she's still with me." Richard had to hide the tears welling up again. How could a child hold so much wisdom and innocence at once? "Jack, I'm taking you home with me today, but you need to know my life will have to change a lot, and yours too." "I know. Aunt Dorothy said when we gain a family, we have to learn to live together, share things, and take care of each other." Aunt Dorothy seems to know a lot about family. She raised 7 kids alone. Now she has 15 grandchildren. She said family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to stay together even when it's hard. Richard paid the bill, and they left the bakery. His car, a black Lexus, was parked on the street. Jack stared at it wide-eyed. "Is this your car?" "Yes. It's really nice. Looks like the ones that drove by when I was waiting for you in the park." Richard opened the passenger door, but the boy hesitated. "What's wrong? I've never ridden in a car like this. What if I dirty something?" "Jack, you're more important than any car. Get in." During the drive to the penthouse, Jack stayed quiet, watching the city through the window. Richard glanced at him in the rearview mirror, seeing a mix of wonder and worry on the boy's face. "Uncle Richard?" It was the first time Jack had called him Uncle, and the word sounded like music. "Yes?" "Do you regret not looking for my mum?" The question was simple but heavy with meaning. "I regret it deeply, Jack. It's my biggest regret in life." "She didn't regret you. She always said you were a good man, just a little lost." "A little lost?" "She said sometimes people get so busy building big things, they forget the small things that matter." Once again, Emily's wisdom echoed through her son's words. They arrived at Richard's building, a luxurious high-rise in the Upper East Side. Jack looked up, trying to count the floors. "You live all the way up there?" "On the top floor." "Wow, you must be able to see the whole world from there." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. In the elevator, Jack marveled at the mirrors and soft background music. "It's like a little music box," he observed. Richard had never noticed the elevator music before. To him, it was just noise. But seeing everything through Jack's eyes was making him rediscover his own world. The penthouse was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a panoramic view of New York City. Jack froze in the doorway. "This is where you live?" "Yes." "Alone?" "Alone." Jack walked slowly through the living room, carefully touching the furniture as if afraid to break something. "It's beautiful, but it feels empty. The observation was spot on. The penthouse was empty, filled with expensive furniture, modern art on the walls, everything beautiful and utterly lifeless. "Where will I sleep?" Jack asked. Richard realized he hadn't thought of that. He had 2 guest rooms, but both were used as offices and storage. "We'll set up a room for you. You can choose whichever you want." They visited the rooms, and Jack chose the smallest one, which had a window facing the park where they had met. "Why this one?" "Because I can see the park where we met, and when I miss my mom I can look out there and remember her bringing me to meet you." Richard felt a lump in his throat. That boy had a way of seeing the world that was both innocent and profound. They spent the rest of the day arranging the room. Richard called a furniture store and asked them to deliver a bed, a wardrobe, and some children's furniture urgently. He paid an extra fee for same-day delivery. While they waited for the furniture to arrive, Jack explored the penthouse. He was fascinated by the open kitchen, the home theater, and the view from the balcony. "Uncle Richard, do you stay here all alone every night?" "I do." "Aren't you scared?" "Scared of what?" "Scared of having no one to talk to when you're sad. Scared of having no one to take care of you if you get sick. Scared of having no one to share the good things that happen." Richard realized Jack had put his finger on something he had never admitted to himself: his deep loneliness. "Sometimes I am," he admitted. "Now we won't be alone anymore," Jack said, taking Richard's hand. "We have each other." The furniture arrived by late afternoon, and Jack helped set everything up, even though he was too small to be much help. His excitement about having his own room was contagious. When they finished, Jack flopped onto the new bed and sighed happily. "It's the softest bed in the world," he declared. "Softer than the cardboard under the overpass? 1,000,000 times softer." That night, Richard made dinner. He hadn't cooked in years, always ordering in or eating out. But he wanted to do something special for Jack. "Can I help?" the boy asked. "Of course. Do you know how to cook?" "My mom taught me a few things. I can fry eggs, make pasta, and fix a sandwich." They cooked together, and for the first time in years, Richard's kitchen felt alive. Jack told stories about life with Emily, and Richard shared childhood memories of his sister. "My mom said you were the bravest brother in the world," Jack said, "that when she had nightmares, you'd sleep on the floor of her room so she wouldn't be scared." Richard remembered those times. He and Emily had been very close as children, before family troubles and the pressures of adulthood drove them apart. "Your mum was brave too, braver than me." "Why?" "Because she raised you all alone without anyone's help. That's very brave." "She said you'd be the best uncle in the world once you met me. And do you believe that?" "I believe everyone can learn to be better," Jack replied with the wisdom of someone who had learned early that life is full of second chances. After dinner, Jack asked to take a bath. Richard helped him and was shocked again to see the boy's malnourished state. There were small scars on his body, signs of minor injuries that had healed without proper medical care. "Jack, did you get hurt a lot on the streets?" "Sometimes, but nothing serious. I learned to be careful." "And when you got sick?" "Aunt Dorothy knows a lot of home remedies. She took care of me." Richard made a mental note to thank Dorothy the next day. That woman had looked after his nephew when he should have been the one to do it. At bedtime, Jack hesitated at the bedroom door. "Uncle Richard?" "Yes?" "Can you stay with me a little? Just until I fall asleep?" "Of course." Richard sat in the chair beside the bed, and Jack snuggled under the covers. "Uncle Richard, do you think my mum is happy where she is now?" "I'm sure she is, Jack. She must be very happy knowing we found each other." "I think she planned it all. She knew exactly where you'd be this morning." "Why do you think that?" "Because she took me to that bench in the park many times, always at the same time, and she would look around like she was waiting for someone. I think she was looking for you, but she didn't have the courage to talk to you." Richard felt a tightness in his chest. How many times had Emily been there just a few feet away without him knowing? "Jack, do you remember your mother taking you to the park?" "Yes, I do. She always bought popcorn from Aunt Dorothy, and we'd sit on that bench. She'd point to the tall buildings and say, 'Your Uncle Richard lives in one of those big buildings, Jack. One day, You'll meet him. And you wanted to meet me? Very much. I used to imagine what you'd be like, if you'd like me, if you'd teach me grown-up things. And now that you've met me, what do you think? Jack thought for a moment before answering. I think you're sadder than I imagined, but also kinder. Sad? Yeah, I can see it in your eyes. You've been alone for a long time, just like me, but now we won't be alone anymore, right? No, Jack, now we're a family. The boy smiled and closed his eyes. Within minutes, he was fast asleep, his face peaceful in a way Richard had never seen during the day. Richard stayed there for over an hour just watching Jack sleep. It was surreal to have a child in his home, in his life. 24 hours ago, he was a single man with no responsibilities beyond his business. Now, he was responsible for a life, a future, for healing the wounds of a child who had endured more hardship than many adults. His phone rang. It was Jennifer, his secretary. Richard, you didn't come to work today. Is everything okay? Jennifer, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come by tomorrow morning? Of course. Did something happen? Let's just say my life completely changed today. Changed how? You'll understand tomorrow. And Jennifer, cancel all my appointments for next week. All of them? Even the meeting with the Japanese investors? All of them, that's an order. Richard hung up and looked back at Jack. He had a week to figure out how to be a father, how to rearrange his life to include a child, how to heal the wounds he himself had caused with his pride. The next morning, Jack woke up early and found Richard in the kitchen making breakfast. Good morning, Uncle Richard. Good morning, Jack. Sleep well? Better than any night in my life. And you? Me too, Richard lied. In truth, he'd been up all night, thinking about everything he needed to do. Over breakfast, Jack asked, Uncle Richard, can I go to school? You want to go to school? Yes. My mom taught me a little to read, but I want to learn more. I want to learn math, science, all the things kids learn. Of course you can. We'll take care of that today. And can I visit Aunt Dorothy? She must be worried about me. Absolutely. In fact, I'd like to meet this Aunt Dorothy who took care of you. After breakfast, they went down to the park. Dorothy was at her usual spot selling flowers. When she saw Jack approaching with Richard, her face lit up. Jack, my boy, where have you been? I was worried when I didn't see you yesterday. Aunt Dorothy, this is my Uncle Richard. He took me home with him. Dorothy looked at Richard with an expression that mixed relief and suspicion. So, you finally decided to take responsibility? The question was blunt, no beating around the bush. Mrs. Dorothy, I didn't even know Jack existed. If I had... Everyone here knew, Dr. Richard. Everyone but you. What do you mean? Your sister came here all the time with the boy. She'd sit on that bench waiting for you to walk by. Sometimes she'd stay there for hours. Jack kept asking why you didn't talk, and she said sometimes families drift apart, but one day they find each other again. Richard felt ashamed of himself. How had he been so oblivious to what was happening around him? Why didn't anyone tell me? And what was I supposed to say, Doctor? Look, there's a child here waiting for you for a year. Would you have believed me? Would you have stopped your car to listen to a florist? The answer was honest and painful. Dorothy was right. He probably wouldn't have believed it, or he would have told her to go to social services. Mrs. Dorothy, I want to thank you for taking care of Jack. It wasn't just me. There's old Joe at the newsstand, Mrs. Rose at the diner, Mr. Anthony who sweeps the streets. Everyone here helped that boy. Jack tugged at Richard's sleeve. Can I introduce you to everyone? Of course. And so Richard was introduced to an entire community that had built a safety net around his nephew. Each person had a story about how they'd helped Jack, someone who gave him food, someone who offered shelter on heavy, rainy days, someone who took him to bathe, someone who gave him hand-me-down clothes. How did you all organize to take care of him? Richard asked old Joe. We didn't organize anything. That's just how it is here. We look out for each other. An abandoned child is everyone's responsibility. Abandoned? Come on, Doctor. A boy sleeping on the streets, going hungry with no family. If that's not abandonment, I don't know what is. The word abandonment echoed in Richard's mind. Technically, he hadn't abandoned Jack because he hadn't even known he existed, but the result was the same. Mrs. Rose from the diner pulled Richard aside. Doctor, can I tell you something? Of course. That boy is special. He's not just any child. Even when he was in need, he always shared what he had with those who had less. Even though he was small, he protected the younger kids. Even when he was suffering, he never lost his kindness. He learned that from his mother. He sure did. And now he'll learn it from you too. I hope you're ready for the responsibility. I'm trying to prepare. It's not about trying, Doctor. It's about doing. That boy has already suffered too much. Richard got the message. These people had become Jack's family, and now they were handing that responsibility to him, but not without making it clear they'd be watching, ensuring Jack would be well cared for. When they got back home, Jennifer was waiting in the lobby. Richard had called her to discuss the changes he'd need to make to his schedule and his life. Jennifer, I'd like you to meet Jack, my nephew. Jennifer looked visibly surprised. In 5 years working for Richard, she'd never heard of any relatives. Hello, Jack, she said, bending down to his level. Hi, Jack replied shyly. Up in the penthouse, Richard explained the situation to Jennifer. She listened quietly, without judgment. What do you need from me? She asked when he finished. I need to reorganize my schedule. I need time to adjust to this new life. I need to enroll Jack in school, take him to the doctor, handle legal matters. I'll cancel all non-essential appointments. The essential ones we can do by video call when Jack's at school. And there's one more thing. I need to hire someone to help with Jack, someone who understands children. Jennifer thought for a moment. I have a suggestion. My sister Sarah is a teacher, and she's unemployed. She could help Jack adjust and even tutor him. Perfect. Can you call her? While Jennifer made the calls, Jack explored the penthouse again, this time with more confidence. Richard watched him, still trying to believe this was all real. Uncle Richard, Jack called from the balcony. Yes? From here you can see the park where we first met. Richard joined Jack on the balcony. Indeed, the park was visible from there. That's true. You have a privileged view of our special place. Can I go there sometimes to remember my mom? Of course, we can go together whenever you want. Jack smiled and looked back at the park. Uncle Richard, can I ask you something? You can ask me anything. Why did you and my mom fight? The question Richard had been dreading had finally come. How could he explain the complexity of family relationships to a child? How could he admit he'd been petty, small-minded, and judgmental? Jack, when your mum got pregnant with you, she was very young. I thought she wasn't ready to be a mother. Wasn't she really? I don't know. Maybe not. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that you were going to be born and she needed support, not judgment. What's judgment? It's when we decide if someone is right or wrong without trying to understand their side. And you judged my mom. I did, and I was very wrong to do that. Jack fell silent for a moment, processing the information. But my mom didn't hold a grudge against you. She always spoke well of you. Your mom was a better person than I was. Do you think she forgave you? I hope so, Jack. I really hope so. Sarah, Jennifer's sister, arrived in the late afternoon. She was a woman in her 40s with a warm demeanor and experience with children. Jack, how about we chat a little, she suggested. About what? About you. What you like to do, what you know, what you'd like to learn. Richard was impressed by how quickly Sarah made Jack feel at ease. Within minutes, the boy was telling stories, showing he could read a few words and expressing his curiosity about the world. He's very bright, Sarah remarked to Richard afterward, but he needs a lot of love and patience. Children who've been abandoned carry emotional wounds that take time to heal. What kind of wounds? Fear of being abandoned again, trouble trusting, a tendency to blame themselves when bad things happen. Jack seems to be handling it well, but it's important to watch for signs. What signs? Nightmares, regressive behavior, excessive fear of being alone, difficulty forming attachments, but also positive signs. He's adapting well, he's trusting you, he's showing affection. Richard spent the night thinking about Sarah's words. There was so much he didn't know about children, about fatherhood, about healing emotional wounds. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The next day, Richard took Jack to the pediatrician for a full checkup. The doctor confirmed what he already knew. The boy was malnourished and needed regular medical follow-ups. He'll recover, Dr. Williams said. Children are resilient. With proper nutrition and medical care, he'll be in good health within a few months. And emotionally? That will depend a lot on the environment he has now. Stability, affection, routine, those are the foundations for emotional recovery. After the doctor's visit, they tackled the issue of school. Richard had researched the best private schools in New York City, but Jack seemed intimidated when they visited the first one. "It's too big," he whispered, "and the kids are so different from me." Richard realized there was an adjustment problem. Jack needed a welcoming environment, not an intimidating one. Sarah suggested a smaller, more nurturing school with experience handling children in special circumstances. "It's a school that cares more about human development than social status," she explained. They visited the school the next day. It was smaller, simpler, but had something the others didn't: warmth. The principal, Mrs. Thompson, a gray-haired woman with a welcoming smile, greeted Jack as if he were her grandson. "Jack, what a beautiful name. Do you know what it means?" "No," the boy replied, intrigued. "It means rock, someone strong, someone you can rely on." Jack smiled, liking the explanation. "Would you like to see the school?" During the tour, Jack was enchanted by the library, the garden the children tended, and the art room. It was a completely different environment from the expensive schools they had visited before. "Can I study here?" Jack asked Richard. "If you want to, yes." "I really do." Mrs. Thompson spoke with Richard privately. "Mr. Richard, Jack will need special support in the first few months. It's not just about academics, which we can easily address. It's the social aspect. He'll need to learn how to interact with other children, to trust adults, to feel safe. Can the school provide that support?" "We can. We have a school psychologist who specifically works with cases like Jack's." "And what about prejudice from the other children? At this school, we emphasize inclusion and empathy. The children here learn to respect differences and welcome new classmates." Jack started school the following week. Richard took him every morning and picked him up every afternoon. It was a new routine for both of them, but it was creating a special bond. On the first day, Jack came out of school excited. "How was it?" Richard asked. "It was good. Teacher Michelle is really nice. And there's a boy named Michael who also doesn't have a dad. He said we could be friends." Richard was moved to see how Jack was adapting, making friends, finding his place in the world. But not everything was perfect. A week later, Jack came home quieter than usual. "Did something happen at school today?" Richard asked. "A boy said I don't have a real family," Jack replied, his eyes glistening. Richard felt anger rise but controlled himself. "What did you say?" "I said I do, that I have the best uncle in the world." Richard's heart warmed. "And what did the boy say?" "He said an uncle isn't a dad, that a real family is a dad, mom, and kids." "Jack, look at me," Richard said, kneeling to meet the boy's height. "Family isn't defined by titles. Family is defined by love, by care, by being there. I love you as if you were my son, and you love me as if I were your father. That makes us family. But can I call you Dad?" The question took Richard by surprise. He had never thought about it. "Would you like to call me Dad?" "If you'll let me." "Jack, it would be an honor to be called Dad by you. So can I?" "Yes." Jack smiled and hugged Richard. "Dad, thank you for finding me." "Thank you for finding me too, son." And in that moment, they officially became a family. Not by legal documents, which Richard was arranging, but by heart. The following weeks were a time of mutual adjustment. Richard learned to adapt his rigid schedule to include Jack's needs. Jack learned to live in a structured environment with routines, responsibilities, and care. Sarah continued helping with homework and academic support. Jack was progressing quickly, making up for lost time. "He has an incredible thirst for knowledge," Sarah remarked. "It's like he wants to absorb everything he can." Is that good or concerning? It's wonderful. It shows he hasn't lost his curiosity or his will to grow despite everything he's been through. 1 month after Jack's arrival, Richard received an unexpected call. "Hello? Richard? This is Dr. Johnson from Mercy Hospital. Do you know a woman named Margaret Sullivan?" Richard's heart stopped. Margaret was his mother, who had been in a psychiatric clinic for nearly 10 years. "Yes, she's my mother. Why?" "She's asking to speak with you. Says it's urgent, that it has to do with a child." Richard looked at Jack, who was doing homework at the kitchen table. Does she know about Jack?" "I don't know what she's talking about, but she's very agitated. Do you think you can come today?" "I can. I'll bring Jack with me." The psychiatric clinic was a place Richard avoided. Seeing his mother in that state always left him deeply sad. She had developed severe mental issues after her husband's death and had worsened significantly after Emily left home. "Dad, why are we coming here?" Jack asked in the car. "We're visiting your grandmother." "I have a grandmother?" "Yes, you do. Mrs. Margaret, your mother's mother and mine." "Why does she live here?" "She's sick, Jack. Sick in the mind. Sometimes she can't remember things properly or gets confused. Will she like meeting me?" "I'm sure she will." When they arrived at Margaret's room, Richard was startled. His mother was lucid, more lucid than she had been in years. "Richard, my son," she said, rising from her chair, "you brought the boy." "Mom, how did you know about Jack?" "I always knew, Richard. Even here I always knew." Margaret approached Jack and looked at him tenderly. "You look just like your mother when she was little," she said, tears in her eyes. "Just like my Emily." "You knew my mother?" Jack asked. "Yes, my dear, I'm your grandmother Margaret." Jack looked at Richard, who nodded encouragingly. "Can I hug you?" "Of course you can, my grandson." The embrace between grandmother and grandson was emotional. Margaret cried with joy, and Jack seemed to instinctively understand the importance of that moment. "Richard," Margaret said, still holding Jack, "I need to talk to you." "About what, Mom?" "About Emily. About you. About the things I should have said long ago." Richard sat down, preparing for a conversation he knew would be difficult. "When Emily got pregnant, you did what you thought was right," Margaret began. "But you were wrong, and I was wrong for not stopping you from kicking your sister out." "Mom." "Let me speak, Richard. I've been sick for a long time, but some things I always knew. Emily came back here many times with Jack. She wanted to show me her son, wanted me to meet the boy." "She came here?" "Yes, she did. Many times. But you had forbidden any contact. The staff had orders from you not to let her in." Richard felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. He'd given those orders years ago, when he was still angry at Emily. "I didn't know she tried to visit you. She tried to reach you too, but you changed your phone, changed your address. She couldn't find you." "Why didn't anyone tell me this when she passed?" Margaret finished. "Because you'd made it clear you didn't want news of her." Jack, who had been listening quietly, moved closer to Richard. "Dad, you don't have to be sad. My mom didn't hold any anger toward you." "How do you know that, Jack?" "Because she always said one day our family would be together again. That love was stronger than pride." Margaret smiled through her tears. "Emily was always wise. Even as a young girl, she understood matters of the heart better than any of us." "Mom, you're doing better." "Why?" "Because now I have a reason to get better," she said, looking at Jack. "I have a grandson to know, stories to tell, lost time to make up for." Margaret's Doctor. Dr. Anderson entered the room and was surprised by the scene. "Mrs. Margaret, how are you feeling?" "Better than ever, Doctor. I'd like to introduce my grandson, Jack." "Your grandson?" "He's Emily's son, my daughter who passed away last year." Dr. Anderson looked at Richard, seeking confirmation. "It's true," he confirmed. "Jack is my nephew and he's living with me now." "That's wonderful," said the doctor. "Mrs. Margaret always spoke of a daughter and a grandson. We thought they were hallucinations." "They weren't hallucinations," Margaret said firmly. "It was longing." The doctor asked to speak with Richard privately. "Mr. Richard, your mother has shown significant improvement since learning about the boy. It's as if having a purpose, a reason to take care of herself, is aiding her recovery. Can she be discharged?" "Not yet. But we can consider more frequent visits," maybe even supervised outings. Can Jack visit her regularly? Of course. In fact, it would be very beneficial for her. When they returned to the room, Jack was showing Margaret some drawings he'd made at school. "Look, Grandma, this is a drawing of our family," he said, holding up a paper with 3 figures, a tall man, a child, and a white-haired lady. "Our family," Margaret repeated, moved. What a beautiful word. "Grandma, can you teach me things about my mom? What was she like when she was little?" "Of course, my love, I have so many stories to tell." And so Jack gained not just a father, but also a grandmother. The Sullivan family, fragmented by years of pride and misunderstandings, was beginning to rebuild. On the way home, Jack was more talkative than usual. "Dad, Grandma Margaret is really nice. She liked you a lot too. Why was she sick?" "Sometimes, Jack, when you're very sad for a long time, your mind gets sick, just like when your body gets sick. And now she's going to get better. The doctor thinks so. Having you in her life is helping her heal. Just like you, Dad. Having you in my life is healing me too." Richard had to blink several times to hold back tears. That boy had an emotional wisdom that amazed him every day. 2 weeks later, Richard got a call from Jennifer. "Richard, there's a journalist here who wants to speak with you. She said it's about a family story, something about a street kid." Richard's heart raced. He'd managed to keep the story out of the media so far, but he knew sooner or later someone would find out. "Which journalist?" "Rachel Thompson from the New York Times. She said she received an anonymous tip." "A tip about what?" "That you abandoned a child and only took him in after a year on the streets." Richard felt his world collapse. If this story was published in a distorted way, it could ruin not just his reputation, but also hurt Jack. "Tell her I'll speak with her. But I want Jack kept out of this." "Where is Jack?" "At school. I'll ask Sarah to pick him up and take him to her apartment today." Rachel Thompson was an experienced journalist in her 50s. Richard met her in his office, prepared for the worst. "Mr. Richard, I've received information that you abandoned a child for a year and only took responsibility after he sought you out publicly." "The information is incorrect," Richard replied calmly. "Then please explain your version." Richard told the whole story, from the fight with Emily to finding Jack in the park. He showed his sister's letter, the documents, the medical reports proving Jack's malnutrition. "Can you prove you didn't know about the child?" "I can. I can show there was no contact between me and my sister for the last 8 years. I can show I changed my phone number and address specifically to avoid contact with her." "Why did you do it?" "Out of pride, out of pettiness, for the worst reasons possible." Richard's honesty seemed to disarm the journalist. "And now, how is the child doing?" "Jack is fine. He's in school, making up for lost time. He's being monitored by doctors and psychologists. He's being cared for the way he should have been since birth." "Can I speak with him?" "No. Jack has suffered enough. I won't expose him to more trauma." "But how can I confirm your version of events?" "You can talk to the people who looked after him on the streets. You can speak with the school he attends now. You can talk to the doctors monitoring him. They can all confirm that Jack is well and being properly cared for." Rachel took a few notes. "Mr. Sullivan, I'll investigate further before publishing anything. But I have to say, if I find out you're lying, I'm not lying. And if you want to publish something, write about the problem of abandoned children in this city. Write about the people who care for these children when family and the state fail them. Write about second chances and how love can heal wounds." The conversation ended less hostilely than it had begun. Rachel promised to investigate further before making any decisions about publication. That night, Richard talked to Jack about the possibility of their story appearing in the papers. "Dad, will people find out I used to live on the streets?" "Maybe. Does that bother you?" "A little. I'm afraid my friends at school won't want to play with me anymore." "Jack, your real friends will stay your friends, and if anyone treats you badly because of your past, they don't deserve your friendship." "And what about you? Aren't you afraid of getting a bad reputation?" The only thing that matters to me is your well-being. If people want to judge me, let them. I know I'm doing the right thing now." Jack smiled and hugged Richard. "Dad, even if everyone turns against us, I'll still be on your side. And I'll always be on yours, son, always." Rachel's article came out a week later, but not in the way Richard had expected. The headline read, "The Love That Rebuilds Families, the Story of Jack and Richard Sullivan." The journalist had spoken with Dorothy, Jack's teachers, his doctors, and Mrs. Thompson from the school. They all confirmed Richard's account and spoke about the positive transformation in Jack's life. The piece didn't focus on abandonment, but on the rebuilding of a family. It spoke of second chances, how pride can destroy relationships, but also how love can mend them. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Richard received countless messages of support from people who related to the story, from families who had faced similar struggles. But what moved him most was an envelope that arrived in the mail a few days later. Inside was a child's drawing, two figures holding hands with the words, "For Jack and his dad, who found each other in the place of the heart." The accompanying letter read, "My name is Emma. I'm 8 years old. My teacher read your story to our class. I don't have a dad either, but I have my grandma who takes care of me. I want Jack to know it doesn't matter how a family starts. What matters is how it keeps going. You're a beautiful family." Jack was deeply touched by the letter. "Dad, are there more kids like me?" "Yes, son. So many children who need family, who need love. Can we help them?" "How do you mean? Can we do something to help other kids find their families?" Jack's question planted a seed in Richard's mind. He began thinking of ways to use his experience and resources to help other children in similar situations. A few weeks later, Richard announced the creation of the Emily Sullivan Foundation in honor of his sister. The foundation would aim to reunite separated families, support homeless children, and create family reintegration programs. "Why did you choose my mother's name?" asked Jack. "Because it was she who taught me, through you, that family is the most important thing in the world, that past mistakes don't matter. What matters is the love we have now." Jack smiled proudly. "My mother would be happy. I'm sure she would." The foundation started small, but grew quickly. Other business owners joined the cause, moved by Richard and Jack's story. Professionals specializing in social work, psychology, and family law volunteered their services. 6 months after their meeting in the park, Jack was unrecognizable. He had gained weight, his skin had a healthy glow, and his eyes shone with happiness. At school, he was one of the top students and had many friends. Richard had also changed. His hair had a few more gray strands, but his smile was more frequent and genuine. He had learned to balance work and family, discovering that being a father was the most important job of his life. Margaret improved day by day. Jack's regular visits were like medicine for her. The doctor had approved supervised outings, and Richard took Jack to spend entire afternoons with his grandmother. "Jack is teaching me how to be a grandmother," Margaret remarked during one of these visits, "and he's teaching me it's never too late to start over." One afternoon, Jack asked a question that took everyone by surprise. "Grandma, where's Grandpa?" Margaret was silent for a moment. It had been a long time since she'd spoken about her husband. "Your grandfather passed away before you were born, my love." "Was he a good person?" "Yes, he was. He was a hard-working man who loved his family deeply, but sometimes work took all his time, and he forgot to show the love he felt." Jack looked at Richard. "Like you used to be, Dad." "Like I used to be," Richard confirmed, "but you both taught me that work without family means nothing, and family without love means nothing too," Jack added with his usual wisdom. On the first anniversary of their meeting in the park, Richard prepared a special surprise. He took Jack back to the bench where it all began, but this time with the whole extended family: Dorothy, Old Joe, Mrs. Rose, Sarah, Jennifer, and even Margaret, who had received special permission to leave the clinic. "Why did you bring everyone here, Dad?" "Because these people were your family when I wasn't there. They cared for you, protected you, loved you. They deserve to be recognized as part of our story." Dorothy had brought special flowers for the occasion. "These are flowers of love," she told Jack. to remind you that love always finds a way to bloom, even in the hardest places. Old Joe brought a framed newspaper, the first article about the Emily Sullivan Foundation. To remember that good things can come from sad stories, he said. Mrs. Rose brought a cake she had baked specially for the day, shaped like a heart. To sweeten this special day, she said. Sarah brought a photo album with all the drawings and schoolwork Jack had done that year. To keep the memories of your new life, she said. Jennifer brought official documents. Richard had finally secured full legal custody of Jack. So, there's never any doubt about who belongs to whom, she said. And Margaret brought an old little box. What's that, Grandma? Jack asked. These are the Sullivan family jewels. They belong to my grandmother, then my mother, then me. One day when you grow up and start your own family, you'll give them to your wife. But I'm a boy, Grandma. And when you're a man, you'll choose a special girl to love. And give these jewels to her, continuing the family tradition. Jack took the little box with reverent care. I'll keep them forever. You don't need to keep them forever, said Margaret. You need to keep them until you find someone special to share them with. Richard hugged his mother. Seeing her lucid, engaged, and caring for her grandson was a miracle he had never dared to hope for. Sitting together on the park bench with the sun setting behind them, Jack made an observation that stayed etched in everyone's memory. You know what I've learned this whole year? What? Several voices asked at once. I've learned that family isn't just who raised you. Family is who chooses to stay with you. And I've learned it's never too late to start a new family. And what else have you learned? Richard asked. I've learned my mom was right. Love always finds a way. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it's hard, but it always finds a way. Dorothy wiped away a tear. This boy is going far in life. He's already come far, Richard replied. He brought us here. When the casual park gathering ended, Richard and Jack stayed alone on the bench, just like the first day. Dad, do you still read the newspaper here in the mornings? Not as much as before. I'd rather spend mornings having coffee with you. But you can come read here sometimes. I can join you. You'd like that? I would. It's a special place for us. It really is. It's the place where we found each other. No, Dad. It's the place where we recognized each other. We were always family. We just didn't know it. Richard looked at the boy beside him. In a year, Jack had grown taller, filled out and matured. But more than that, he had taught Richard the true meaning of family, love, and responsibility. Jack, do you regret coming to find me that day? Never. And you? Never. It was the best day of my life. Mine too. Well, technically the second best. What was the first? The day I was born, and my mom told me I was the most beautiful gift she could ever have. And now, you're the most beautiful gift I could ever have. Jack smiled and rested his head on his father's shoulder. Dad, can I tell you a secret? Of course. Sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up and find out this was all a dream. Sometimes I am too, Richard admitted. But then I remember dreams don't hurt and my heart aches from so much happiness, so I know it's real. And it'll stay real? Forever, son. Forever. 2 years later, the Emily Sullivan Foundation had reunited dozens of separated families. Jack actively participated in the activities whenever he could, sharing his story with other children in similar situations. Margaret had been medically cleared and now lived in an apartment near Richard's penthouse. She had fully recovered and was a loving, present grandmother. Jack, now 9, was a happy, bright and caring boy. He had many friends at school and dreamed of becoming a lawyer to help other kids like him. Richard had found the perfect balance between work and family. His business thrived, but never at the cost of time with Jack. One Sunday afternoon, they were at the park again. Jack was flying a kite Richard had taught him to make when a little girl approached. "Can you help me?" she asked, crying. "I lost my mommy." Jack immediately stopped playing and went to her. "What's your name?" "Mary." "Mary, I'm Jack, and this is my dad, Richard. We'll help you find your mommy." Richard watched as Jack comforted the girl, calming her down and making her feel safe. It was amazing how this boy, who had endured so much abandonment, had so much love to give. Jack learned his lessons well, a voice said behind him. Richard turned and saw Dorothy, who had stopped to watch the scene. What lessons? The lessons life teaches us, that those who have suffered don't want to see others suffer, that those who were once lost know how to help others find their way. A few minutes later, a desperate woman came running. "Mary! My daughter!" The girl ran into her mother's arms, and Jack smiled with satisfaction. "Thank you," the mother said to Richard. "Thank you so much for looking after my daughter." "It was Jack who took care of her," Richard replied. "He's the one with the big heart." When the mother and daughter walked away, Jack returned to Richard's side. "Dad, I remembered when I was lost and afraid I'd never find my family. And now? Now I know everyone can find their way if they don't give up searching. And if they don't give up hoping," Richard added. "Just like you waited your whole life for a family even without knowing. And just like you waited a year on that bench, even without being sure I'd come." Jack took Richard's hand. "Dad, I think my mum really planned it all. She knew you needed a family as much as I did." "Why do you say that?" "Because she always said love organizes things. That when two people need each other, love finds a way to bring them together." Richard looked at the bench where it all began, then at the boy beside him, then at the park filled with happy families. "Your mother was very wise. She was. And she still is. She lives in me. And now she lives in you too." "How so?" "Because now you have a heart just like hers, full of love to give." Richard hugged Jack, feeling immense gratitude for the boy who had completely transformed his life. "Jack, do you know the best part of this whole story?" "What? It doesn't end here. We have the rest of our lives to build more memories together, and to help other families find their way too. And to help other families find their way too," Richard agreed. They fell silent for a moment, watching the park's activity. Children playing, families picnicking, couples strolling, elderly folks chatting on benches. "Dad?" "Yes, son. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when you didn't know I existed. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when it took me so long to find you." And there, on that park bench where their lives had come together, father and son sealed a silent pact of unconditional love that would last forever. The story of the millionaire businessman and the street boy who claimed to have been abandoned by him had transformed into the story of a family that found each other at the right time, in the right way, guided by love that never gives up. Jack had found not just a father, but an entire family. Richard, Margaret, and all those who had welcomed him in his time of need. Richard had found not just a son, but a purpose, a meaning for his life, and a lesson about what truly matters. And Emily, wherever she was, surely smiled seeing her plan had worked. Her brother and her son were together, caring for each other, and spreading love wherever they went. Life had given them all a second chance, and they hadn't wasted it. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of family reconnection. Do you believe love can truly heal the wounds of the past and reunite separated families? Share your thoughts in the comments and leave a like if the story touched your heart. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories about family, overcoming challenges, and second chances. Your company makes all the difference.